What a proud to tell you, Daniel, that offensive line, huge strength before the season began, suffering some setbacks on the injury front and a whole lot of shuffling going on. Daniel,
Well,
what if I was to then tell you
okay.
that we're still the most stable top team in all the nation, regardless of that?
Well, those two things don't compute, Clint. You're going to have to explain it to me further.
We'll come back and let's do that next on Locked On Bulldogs.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Hello, and welcome to the Locked On Bulldogs podcast. So happy to have you here. Today's episode brought to you by Birddogs. Spoiler alert, I'm wearing the joggers right now, and they are absolutely sensational. More on them in a second. He is Clint, I'm Daniel, and this is the Locked On Bulldogs podcast. Hey, we are so happy that you are here. If this is your first time finding the show, just go ahead and click that subscribe or follow button on whatever platform you're listening or watching this on, YouTube. Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you are consuming this media, we are appreciative of you. Thank you so much for being here. We've got a bunch to cover today. We're going to talk about Georgia because that's what the podcast is about, but we're also going to talk about the rest of the top 10, the other top teams in college football. I did say the top 10, so Alabama fans, maybe go find another show to watch because there won't be any pertinent information to you this episode. We are going to talk about the rest of the top 10 and do a little compare and contrast. How does Georgia stack up against them so far to this point in the season? Which should be interesting. Should prove to be interesting. Information will be discussed. But first, let's talk about the information that Kirby Smart discussed with the media on Wednesday. Is that Wednesday? No, Tuesday. Yep, Tuesday. All the days are running together.
They're running together, Daniel, because it's called depression. And that's when all the days run together and there's no distinction.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
And Marius Mims is here.
Marius Mims is out 6 to 8 weeks, having a surgical procedure done. Pour one out for the Georgia fan in your life because this is a tough loss. I'll tell you why it's a tough loss, Clint, because we've been saying all season the offensive line is the worst unit on this team already. Now, that shouldn't be the case. They've got an abundance of talent, Clint.
Before the season, it was our amount of
talent. They have continuity where they need continuity. They've got 5-star depth where they need 5-star depth. And yet the offensive line through 3 games has consistently underperformed over and over again. I would say second to no other unit, possibly. We're taking kicker out of this equation because I'm not talking about kicker.
We've officially made our selection, and we will hear nothing else.
We are not the floor is not open for nominations from the floor. We're not accepting write-in ballots. There's none of that.
Robert's rules don't apply here. I don't care.
We don't need a move or a second. We need a field goal made is what we need. The offensive line has performed worse than any other unit, possibly save running back, but running back has been missing all of its key weapons, all of the key pieces on the season. And as those guys come back and begin to get healthy, we've seen that group improve. The offensive line really, you don't feel like could afford to take a shot like this because Marius Mims, one of the better players on that line, moves. And now it seems like it's going to be Xavier Truss moving from left guard out to right tackle. The left side of the line wasn't great. And now we take one of the pieces from that left side. We move them over to the right side of the line, one of the most important spots on the line itself. Now, both of our tackles, Clint, are suspect at best. And we've got backups coming in to play guard, a position that has already underperformed on the season. I'll just toss it over to you and say, why?
Just first of all, why? Thank you. That's a great question. You clearly have some skeletons in your closet that you're paying penance on. This is all I can say, Daniel. That's
You're putting all this on me.
I
is
am.
What you, yep.
This all
That's
on
fair.
you.
That's fair.
Look, here's the deal. Here's why I said I started off the show by saying we're gonna have a shakeup on offensive line, and it shouldn't matter. And here's why: our running backs are getting healthier, and Dejon Edwards makes any line instantly a grade above their norm. Instantly.
That's true.
Okay, so there's that. We know that a lot of these quick hit screens, with the running backs being a little bit depleted, are going to continue, and they're going to get better at it. We're going to see Dom Lovett and Ra ascend in this offense. Just mark my words. They're going to ascend.
Going to be a lot of Dom. There's going to be a lot of Muse. When Lad McConkey gets healthy, spoiler alert, there's going to be a lot of Lad.
Yes. So I think the offense will be fine. And here's the last piece that I'll put, and this is going to sound weird. Truss might be better at tackle than he is at guard. Now, tackle, a noted harder position to play than guard. Interior line, you get better slide protection. You're in the middle of things. You can combo block a great deal. Tackle, you are on an island most of the time. And Truss, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, which we are on this podcast quite a lot, suspect at best when he's isolated. He was exposed in the bowl game against Texas.
Back when he was playing left tackle, correct.
And we slid him in, and now we're putting him on the right side when our left tackle hasn't been doing anything good over there. Ernest Green has not been performing well. Graded out the lowest offensive line player last game was our left tackle. And now we're taking a guy who is maybe comparable, if not worse than him, talent-wise at tackle, and putting him at right tackle. Now, here's my spoiler. Here's my guess. My guess is he does not stay at right tackle. My guess is Xavier Truss does not play right tackle. They're going to try him out there. Kirby said in the presser, they're trying him at guard and at tackle. I think Blasky or somebody else is going to come out and play right tackle. Daniel, that's my prediction. That's my guess. I think we're going to get a couple series.
By when?
Couple series in. 2 series.
Oh, this game.
This game.
You're not saying week 6 or
no,
the
I'm
Florida
saying
game. You're not saying
right tackle experiment will be done after UAB.
It will be short-lived. He will be back at left guard.
We've seen Kirby do this with offensive line. Now, everybody this is why I say calm down. It's not that bad. We've done this before. We've had a 6-man rotation on line. Jamari Sawyer, again, slid in a guard, went out to tackle, was just fine. We've mixed and matched the offensive line to get the best 5 out there. We're going to get the best 5 out there. And I think Xavier is going to get exposed. And I think we're actually going to see a couple of guys extend themselves in practice and in the game to make a new left guard and right tackle. I think Xavier Truss's days of starting on this offensive line are over, which is weird to say. Now, we saw this before Mims' injury. We saw the left guard getting rotation before Mims was injured.
Absolutely. We're seeing Dylan Fairchild is coming in. There's a couple guys. Michael Morris is coming in. There's a couple of guys that have been rotating in that position already. That's why I think Xavier Truss is going to move out to tackle. I think he's going to stick at tackle because I think what you said originally, I absolutely believe. I believe he's a better tackle than he is a guard. I believe they moved him into guard because he wasn't good enough to play left tackle. They wanted Ernest Green. They liked Ernest Green. They liked what they had in there. And there wasn't a spot for Xavier Truss because you had Amarius Mims and they had Ernest Green. Last year, obviously, Ernest couldn't play because you had Broderick Jones and he was coming off of the injury. But they obviously have liked this kid for a long time. I think he's going to continue. I don't worry about him long term because I think the coaching staff likes him enough, Ernest Green, that is, to have solidify him out there at left tackle. I think the reason Xavier Truss was in a guard was because, quite frankly, there just hasn't been a spot for him because the tackle spot has been so strong. Last year, obviously, you had Warren McClendon, you had Broderick Jones, and you had Amarius Mims. We didn't need a 4th tackle last year. And Xavier Truss, to all of the criticism that he's received from you and others, is a talented offensive lineman, and I think they wanted to find a spot for him. And so you saw him getting reps at guard last year with guys like Willick and other guys. And so I think this year, now that there's a need at tackle and there's depth at guard and there's not depth at tackle because guys like Monroe Freeling, great name, not ready to play yet. Guys like Blasky coming off banged up, probably not ready to go. There's just not enough.
He's ready.
There's not enough tackles. And so I think you're going to see Xavier Truss out there in a position that's more natural to him. And I like that it's on the right side and not the left side. And I think he's going to stick out there. I think until Mims is able to come back if he is this season, I think you're going to see Xavier Truss at right guard. So we'll see who's right. I think either way, both of us are in agreement. This is not a reason to fire off all of the panic, that you have built up inside of you. It's frustrating. It's disappointing, but there's no reason to panic. Maybe yet.
We're going to come back after this and talk about how Georgia stacks up against other teams. But first, these. And these are, in fact, Birddogs. Birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. Fantastic. Daniel said that he's wearing those joggers. Daniel, are the joggers soft?
The joggers, they fit. First of all, it's a great fit. They are comfortable. They got the liners in there. They look great. They're not burdened with a bunch of like zippers and all sorts of nonsense on them. You can wear them just out on a walk. You can wear them to the gym. You can wear them to something, that's like going out to a restaurant or something like that.
Pick up some queso, put those joggers on and run on down and pick up that queso.
You just jog on down. You could drive as well. These are all options that you have. Birddogs just makes absolutely like buttery smooth, comfortable clothing that you are going to want to wear. Shorts, joggers, hats, shirts. They've got it all.
Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege or enter promo code lockedoncollege to check out for a free Birddogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take off the Birddogs. We promise you.
Don't try to get me to take them off, Clint.
I will.
I don't want to.
I can promise you.
Clint, stop. I don't want to.
I won't ask.
Clint, for the last time, I do not want to get on the yacht. Okay?
Let's talk about, speaking of
yachts
that are no longer in the top 10. Urban Meyer and his yacht, no longer top 10 worthy.
All right. Let's just roll through this top 10.
Okay.
Because Georgia been struggling a little bit. You ask some Georgia fans, Georgia is in big trouble. They have been struggling massively.
We will never play for another playoff championship caliber team ever again.
You ask any Georgia fan, though, to be fair, Georgia has had moments where they've not looked particularly good this season. There have been moments where they have struggled this season. Being down 14-3 at halftime against South Carolina is a struggle. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your standard is. I don't care how many possessions you had. I don't care what your expectations were. You were down 14-3 against South Carolina at halftime. That's not great.
It's not great.
So Georgia has struggled this season, but still ranked number 1 in the meaningless AP poll, the poll that never has and never will ever mean anything.
For one more time, we only care about one poll. It's the college football playoff poll.
That's right. And so let's just, as a thought experiment, let's roll through the other 9 teams in this top 10, and let's just compare and contrast and see how Georgia stacks up against them. I'm going to give you the first grouping, which is going to be schools 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're going to talk about them in this segment. And then in the last segment, we'll talk about schools 6 through 10. Schools 2, 3, 4, and 5 are Michigan, Texas, Florida State, and Southern Cal. Clint, Michigan on Saturday screwed around with Bowling Green. I mean, it wasn't pretty. J.J. McCarthy threw 100 interceptions.
J.J. McCarthy showed himself to be fraudulent at quarterback.
Jim Harbaugh's been suspended for 3 games. He comes back this week. Maybe that'll make a difference. I don't know. Texas screwed around with Wyoming. That game was, I think, 10-10 at some point in the game.
Into the third. Daniel.
Into the third, tie game. They ended up winning by 2 touchdowns. Florida State, I rewatched the Florida State-Boston College game. They absolutely should have lost that game. Like Boston College came out of like a bull with its hair on fire and just blew through Florida State in the second half of that game. If there had been 5 more minutes in that game, Florida State would have lost 100%.
If there was 2 of the 25 penalties against Boston College not called, Boston College would have won that game.
So Florida State looked terrible on Saturday. I mean, looked great in the first half and then looked terrible at halftime.
Oh, so a game is more than just one half. Is that what
Where
you're
have we
saying?
heard that before? That's
interesting.
interesting if we're going to apply that logic. And then USC, a team that's 3-0 and that has, to be fair, absolutely beaten the pants off of everybody that's played,
Sure.
has not looked to struggle at all this season. The opponents are San Jose State, Nevada, and Stanford. And I'll throw those four teams at you, Clint, and just get your thoughts on how does Georgia stack up against those four teams.
It's very simple. We're better than every single one of those teams, hands down. Defense, Ohio State, please stop. I beg you, please stop. Michigan,
we haven't gotten to Ohio State yet.
I'm just saying ahead of time. I'm getting there. I was then going to say Michigan. You can talk to me sincerely. Michigan, we can have a serious adult conversation because that's a defense. Okay,
it's a defense. They've allowed 16 points this season.
I'll talk to you.
Sure, but it is against East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green. But they have allowed 16 points this season.
I'm fine with that. Okay, but again, you told me JJ McCarthy was going to go in the first round at quarterback.
Uh-oh.
And I laughed because it's hysterical.
We're
still laughing. They don't have the offensive line. Kind of similar situations to us. They don't have the offensive line they thought they did at the beginning of the season. Their running backs are okay. JJ McCarthy is a problem at quarterback. I would much rather have Carson Beck than anything that JJ has, hands down, every day, twice on Sundays. Defense is a real deal. But we're better than them across the board. Texas doesn't have, they got some dudes at wide receiver. We know that they got some dudes. Quarterback,
they got a dude at quarterback. Absolutely.
He can sling it. Admittedly, defense does not scare me one bit. They can't pressure the quarterback when they need to. They can't get off the field, and their running game
pressured the crap out of Jalen Milroe in that game.
Let's just stop. Just stop it.
I thought the Alabama offensive line was supposed to be pretty good. Clint, do you have thoughts on that?
That's what I mean. Just stop. I think actually USC.
Hello, here we go. Of these four teams, Clint,
USC scares me the most.
Thank you.
USC is terrifyingly good.
He's not wrong.
Terrifyingly good on offense.
Think about years past, Georgia fans. Have we had good defenses?
Mm-hmm.
And when we've gone up against really good offenses with those really good defenses, we've won our share of those games, right? We beat Alabama, Bryce Young in the national championship game. We beat CJ Stroud, Ohio State last year in the college football playoff. But we've given up a few points in them games. It ain't like we went out there and gave up 13
big gulp,
in those games.
Big gulp. And I'm not talking the thing you get from 7-Eleven. I'm talking the thing that your throat does thinking about that.
If Georgia played the University of Southern California, the University of Southern California would hang 38 minimum on Georgia. And I say that with zero hesitation. Hesitation.
Offense, they don't care about game management. They don't care about discipline. They don't care about defense. And you know what? They don't care that they don't care. They readily accept it. This is their game plan. They are terrifyingly good at what they do. USC's a real threat.
I'm not saying Georgia wouldn't win that game.
No.
I'm just trying to tell you, if you win that game comfortably by 2 scores, you're going to have to get north of 50 to win that game. You might have to get really north of 50 to win that game comfortably by 2 scores.
They have freshman kid wide receiver
and tight end. There's 2 freshmen on that team that are
All-American right now. That are All-American.
USC plays Arizona State this week. We're not going to learn anything about USC because Arizona State might be the worst team in college football.
I think I was just going to say, I think we're going to learn something. How many points the scoreboard goes to?
Yeah. Is it a triple-digit scoreboard or just a double? Because we may need it. All right. We're coming back after this. We're going to go through the bottom half of the top 10, which, spoiler alert, I think is stronger than the top half of the top 10. I think the top 10 is inverted. And so we're going to talk about the bottom half and how they stack up against Georgia right after this.
And this is, in fact, Jace Medical. Daniel, Jace Medical, fantastic life-saving antibiotics that are given to us and medication form that can be at your disposal, can it not?
That's right. You go online to jacemedical.com and you get the Jace case. It is life-saving antibiotics. You put them in your car, you put them in your house, you put them in the vacation home, you put them in your boat, your RV, wherever you might need them. Be prepared in the event of an emergency. It is life-saving antibiotics. There are licensed pharmacists, licensed physicians. They walk you through a simple and easy questionnaire. Both Clint and I have gone through it. It is very straightforward. It is very easy. They walk you through. They get some medical information from you, and then they're able to send you exactly what you need. You have it on hand, and that way, if you need it, you're not dependent on somebody else to go get it for you. You're not dependent on the local pharmacist to have it in stock. You are able to have it when you need it. Get yours today, your Jace case today at jacemedical.com. Use the promo code LOCKED ON and you get $20 off yours when you order it now. Get it today at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com.
All right, inverted top 10.
Bottom half of the top 10. Here we go. Number 6, Ohio State.
Okay.
Number 7, Penn State. Let the inversion begin.
Ooh.
One of those teams is better than the other one of those teams, and you would not know it based on the rankings. Number 8, Washington. We are ascending in order of teams that are good. Number 9, Notre Dame. Number 10, Oregon.
Okay, let me just get this out of the way right now.
So go ahead.
Notre Dame's beating Ohio State this week.
Tune in for locks tomorrow, everyone. We will have an episode tomorrow where the fact that we think Notre Dame's beating Ohio State this week might give you all the information you need to go make a bet. That's all that we're going to say about that. Listen, I talk about college football a lot. I think about college football a lot. It's always on the brain. I think Washington is really good, Clint. Of the teams in the bottom half of this top 10, I think Washington, Notre Dame, and Oregon are the 3 best. And then I think it's Penn State right behind them. And then I think it's Ohio State on down the list.
Ohio State is fraudulent in every capacity of their game. And I mean every capacity. They don't dominate anywhere.
I really do like Penn State to finish ahead of Ohio State. And I'll tell you this, Penn State's not losing to both Michigan and Ohio State this year. They're not losing to both those teams. Nope. Now, they might split, and then the other two all those teams might finish with 1 loss in the Big Ten, and you might have a 3-way tie at the top of the East. That is a possibility. But I think a greater possibility is that both of those teams beat Ohio State, Michigan and Penn State beat Ohio State. And then the winner of the Michigan-Penn State game, that's the team that's going to represent the Big Ten in the college football playoff.
If you just take a quick survey, Daniel, Penn State, you said they're behind Washington, Oregon, and what was the other team you put in? Penn State, Notre Dame.
Now, that doesn't mean I don't like them because I like Penn State a lot.
I was going to say, Penn State, if you can find a flyer right now, somebody's giving you a juice on Penn State to win their conference, take it now.
To make the playoff?
It now. Penn State might fool around and only finish with 1 loss and a conference championship.
They might finish with 1 loss, no conference championship, and make the playoff. So if you take a flyer on them to make the playoff,
I'm fine with that. And the most dangerous team, I said USC scares me of that previous bunch.
Who scares you the most out of this team?
Out of the Pac-12, I'll go out of the Pac-12. The team that scares me the most, Washington.
Listen, they
are fundamental. They're 3-0. They play both sides of the ball. And they
gave up 19 points to Boise State. They gave up 10 points to Tulsa, and they gave up 7 garbage time points in the 4th quarter on the road against Penn State this week, or against Michigan State this week.
I know Michigan State's down bad, but they still have players out there. Players play with pride. Like, stop with that. Okay. And it's on the road. Like, I get it.
Michael Penix Jr. threw for 470 yards and 4 touchdowns in the first half.
If
that game.
if you're gonna compare and contrast Penix and Caleb, they're comparable to each other, which you wouldn't have said last year. Caleb Williams, you would have said head and shoulders above. They're comparable. They're peers with each other, guys. Washington scares me. I don't want to play Washington at all right now if I'm any team in the Pac-12.
Let me just talk to you about the Washington passing offense real quick. On the season, they have played 3 games. They're averaging 369 passing yards per game, 8.4 yards per attempt. They are 373 of 575 on the season. 369.8 passing yards per game this year, Clint.
If you were to reshuffle all those teams you just listed, the teams that I think Georgia's still number 1. Don't stop with that. If you want to put Michigan at 2, I'm not going to fault you. I truly am not. Number 3 and 4 is some combination of Washington, Penn State, Notre Dame after this week, because I think they're beating the pants out of Ohio State.
Notre Dame just isn't talented. Of all the teams in this top 10, Notre Dame is the one I would choose to play tomorrow. If I could choose to play one team for the national championship in the top 10 right now for the University of Georgia, I get Sam Hartman is good. I get that. I just think of all these teams, Notre Dame might have the fewest really talented dudes. They just don't have the roster and the players, I don't think,
if
that are going to make
them. If they got a team to play their style of game, then they have a shot. But you're not going to keep teams to that. I think Georgia is still not head and shoulders above Washington. I think Washington is below Georgia, but they're next on the list. I think they're ahead of USC. They terrify me, if I'm being totally honest. I would still take us in a game, but the spread is maybe 2.5 right now.
Yeah, I mean, the Pac-12 is a fascinating conference. Who knows what's going to happen to it? But I mean, some of these Georgia fans are just going to be naturally inclined to scoff and laugh off the Pac-12. But I just don't know that is the move this year for this Georgia team, because I don't think Michigan can hang with Georgia. I don't think Notre Dame can hang with Georgia. I don't think Penn State can hang with Georgia. I don't think Florida State can hang with Georgia. I don't think Texas can hang with Georgia. But those Pac-12 schools, Clint, a little bit nervous.
Very nervous.
It's going to be a fascinating rest of the season. I made the argument the other day. I don't know that anyone is good in college football, but that's good for college football. It may mean that there's more teams that can beat Georgia this year than could beat them last year. Nobody could beat Georgia last year, and that was fun. Georgia's going to have to earn it, I think, if they're going to win 2 games in the playoff this year. But none of these teams are unbeatable to me. Like, none of these teams should really scare Georgia in a significant way. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out.
This has been Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We'll see you all tomorrow for locks.